Welcome to Radio Free Will, a podcast for sovereign people. I'm your host, George McCullough, and we're coming at you live and direct from Greigstown, New Jersey. And with us today is Michelle Mockers, artist, activist, and philosopher. Michelle, how are you doing today?
Not too bad, George. Pleased to meet you again. And we can talk.
Meet me again. We've been doing the show for 2.5 years now.
Oh, yeah, but I meet you again today. Come on.
Yeah. And we're lucky enough to be alive, and it's a great, luckily we've had a great winter so far. It's been nice and mild, and I tend to like that. So, Michelle, I wanted to get your reaction. I watched the Democratic debate. Did you watch that?
No, I don't. I am tired. I watched them for a period of time, but it's always the same thing, with some different, according to the personality of who is saying who, but nothing changed. And 50% of the Americans do not vote. And I know some people who vote, they say, I vote because it's a necessity or it's a moral necessity to vote. But you say, but it doesn't change anything at all. It's always the same thing.
Yeah.
And it's a fight between two parties which are basically, except for details, which are the same, exactly the same.
Well, I wanted to get your reaction to this one part. It was a very interesting debate. They were going at each other like it was a blood sport. And it was the first debate that Michael Bloomberg, the eighth richest guy in the world, is now running for president. If he really wanted to do stuff, I would say give up your money and you could end homelessness and give everybody free college.
Listen, there is absolutely no change at all in the American, let's say, policy or whatever it is, since the creation. It's why I always talk about the creation of the Constitution. We are still today venerating the Constitution like if it had been written yesterday by the greatest minds. It had been written 300 years ago by guys who had slaves.
Well, hold on, before you get into that, I know you wanted to get into the Constitution.
No, because that answer what you are just saying right now. Or if you want, it's exactly for me the same thing 300 years ago or today. It's exactly the same thing. The same principle, and the guy with money are the guy with money 300 years ago or today. And the guy with money are the guy who owns the government, basically. Owns the public, owns the means to be elected.
Well, let's get into...
Do you get the means to be elected? No, you don't. And I don't.
Before we get... I know you wanted to talk about the Constitution today, and we'll get into detail, but there was one part in this debate that took place earlier this week where they asked every single one of the candidates, should the nominee be the person with the most number of votes? And every single one of them, except for Bernie Sanders, said no. So, theoretically, every single candidate does not believe in democracy. What's up with that?
No, it's where I go against democracy. Democracy is a word. It's some kind of fall in front of what happened. Everything is under democracy. What means democracy? That's something else that nobody explains, and explain how we are or we are not Democrat. But democracy is we are the capitalist democracy. That's what the exact definition. We are the capitalist democracy, like if the democracy was capitalist. But that is a complete misunderstanding of the word itself. And that understanding has been wrong since the beginning. Because it's always the same thing. It's done by people who have the money against the people who have no money. It's why I'm against the Constitution, because I'm not against the Constitution for that. I am against the fact that it has been written 300 years ago by people who had slaves, my dear. And they wrote a Constitution for the government to how is the government to march, to produce with them as government, and the rest the rest of the country at that time has only three words: the welfare of the people. They never, never, never consider something else than themselves and the democracy. They can stay in the government because they make a machine that will be absolutely can go through the centuries without, it is what happened, without being changed, my dear. And we are still today, 300 years ago, with the slave people.
Do you think that the authors of the Constitution ever imagined that one of the a person from the general public could ever become a president?
No, absolutely not.
Or do you think they wrote it to maintain that the elite would always be in charge of the government?
It's made in such a way that only the elite can be. You cannot run. How can you run? You want to be president? How can you run? You are totally unknown. You have no money. You have no nothing. You want to run to be president. How do you do that? And that is democracy. Democracy is to allow everybody to have the same position. Otherwise, it's not democracy.
You mean the same opportunity?
The same opportunity, my dear. Democracy is a moral concept. It's not a physical concept. It's a moral concept in the beginning. And to accept and to develop a moral concept, you have to have people who know exactly what is a moral concept. And that requires that people have enough education to be able to discuss in democracy. And it is not what happens, my dear. In the same way that if you want, you had the elite people who had the money to write the Constitution and who had all the slave and all that. The slave were not even at the level at their level. It was a lower level. Like if men were made of...
Oh, they were considered three-quarters of a human being? Or
yeah, exactly. They were not complete
Two-thirds
human beings. They were not complete human beings. You don't know why, but it's like that, because those who were the owners of the time, they were owning them, my dear. So those had to remain to what they were. And at the same time, what is absolutely fantastic and is fantastic today is exactly the same thing. At the time of the Constitution was the time of the steam engine. But the people who wrote the Constitution did not consider for 1 second what could be the life of the people with the steam engine, how the steam engine was going to transform the life of the people. They did not, it is not at all in the Constitution. Huh? They don't care about how the people do. So they had no idea that the steam engine was going to transform absolutely the life of the people, the daily life of the people. You know, the steam engine it became with the the shuttle, the mechanic shuttle. We make you make your vitamins with a machine instead of making by hand. Yes, that is very nice, but all the people who previously were doing it by hand, they could not buy the machine. So they become the servant of what they were before. And it's always the same thing, the servant of those who have the money to buy the machine, the servant of those who have the money to buy the steam engine. And those who had the steam engine had something completely wrong, my dear. They built factory. They could build machinery for factory with machines. It was possible. And they needed people to work with that. But there were not anymore, let's say, people working to make you, I don't know, a table, whatever it is. It was only people by the hour, paid by the hour to make a very, very specific job. They were not anymore workers in the nice sense of the word before. They were just working on a machine, and the people with the machine make a very fantastic mistake, like we are making the same mistake today in a different way. They built around the town, they built around the factory, they built town. And those towns were so disgusting, so primitive, so disgusting. You have a lot of examples of 6 people in a bed and the prostitute and everything you want. They were so disgusting, the people were so disgusting that, in fact, the capitalists created communists. Because when Karl Marx said, the workers should get together to be more powerful and to throw away all those people, they follow it. And capitalism created communism. And if I can say a parenthesis after that, what is wonderful is that capitalists find no other way to find communists than with guns. Like if you fight ideas with guns, Vietnam War and all the rest of it. So okay, so to come back with the machine, we are today exactly, if you want, at the same thing. We have no more slaves. We have plenty of slaves.
Oh, there's slaves still in Africa. There's more slaves today than
You're
back
a slave
in,
when you're a kid here, because you're going to be a slave of the loan that you will have to become. If you want to go a little further on, you're obliged to have big loans, and you will have years to pay those off. So for years, you will be depending on the bank, will be depending on the government. In other words, you are the slave of the government by owning money to the government. And we take advantage of it. So instead of going into, like in the past, the young people going into politics and all that, no. They have to pay you have to make their study and to pay the. Now, if we talk study, that's something else. How do you develop the mind? Precisely as I said, that it's a concept, it's a moral concept. How can you develop a moral concept when you don't give to older people the necessary education to understand what is a moral concept? So you have today in America few people who can afford to go to the last of their studies, and a mass of people who cannot. And you even have people who have practically no education. And I can go a little further on that. I had 2 or 3 times talk with graduate student of the university. I don't want to say Princeton University. I'm living in Princeton University. To which I put the question. So ask one of those who were who created tragedy. Ask one student who created tragedy.
the Greek.
Yeah. And who were? Yeah, but the Greek.
Sorry if
The
I
Greek.
spoiled your.
Listen, the Greek, yes, the Greek, okay, but who? Who were the 4 great writers of tragedies in the world since tragedy? Who were they? So they cannot answer that. I ask another question: who marked the end of the British occupation of the United States? Nobody can answer. They don't answer. They don't know.
What was that question again? Let me see
Who
if I can
was
get
the
it.
last manifestation of throwing away the British from their occupation of the United States?
Who was the last
Who
person?
was the last manifestation of throwing away the British? So you ask that to a student of university, and he will never answer you.
What's the answer?
The answer is Yorktown, with the French people. Rochambeau and the French float, and the surrounding of Yorktown. It was the end of it. That was the last manifestation of the British. Who believe that any one of the students you ask that? They don't know. And today, my dear, in the old...
But do you need to know that
Of course you
to
need...
have a democracy?
Well, you better know what you're coming...
because it's just
No,
really
it's-
a trivia question.
Yeah, okay. But you could have democracy without knowing anything at all.
Because I could ask you who won the Super Bowl this year.
Okay, I don't know because I don't follow that anymore. No, I'm too old.
But
to...
it's just a valid.
No,
it's
no,
just
no,
same
no,
kind
no,
of
no,
question.
my dear. Because who wants the world better doesn't make any mark in the future. No mark in the future. Yorktown marked the future. And the 4 guy who wrote tragedy marked the future. Because the future is that one movie has been made on Sophocles, Euripides, king, believe that 3 movies have been done of that. And it's still performed in theaters. But ask one of our students, ask that to one of our students. They don't know. They absolutely don't know that. So, the thing is that to have the real democracy, you have people who know a little more than just what they just eat today at lunchtime. But what is terrible is that the same way that, if you want, the steam engine transformed the world and the owner of the the owner. The owner of the slave were, of course, the owner of the steam engine. So today we don't have the steam engine, but we are at a point where, let's make a little parenthesis, you had fantastic civilization, especially in South America, where the technology, some of the technology are still unknown from us. We are not able to know how they did it. We cannot. And it was enormous population. They disappear entirely. And our civilization can disappear entirely, my dear. It is not proof that we cannot disappear. When you see that today, instead of the steam engine, we have something that will replace the steam engine. The artificial eye and the robot.
The robot.
The robot with the artificial eye, they will replace the steam engine of the time, but it will be exactly the same thing. Who were the owners of the steam engine? Who are the owners of the eye, artificial intelligence? But artificial intelligence is much more dangerous, even dangerous than the steam engine, because today, in the old time, handwriting was developing the personality of somebody, of the kids. You see how they form the letters and they learn how to form the letters that develop the mind. Today, no more of that. The computer.
Yeah, you just put an emoji.
The computer. So you have no more personality. The computer has a personality for you. No, that's all like that. So today, with the computer and with the telephone, you see kids. Absolutely, kids with the telephone. The kids don't go together anymore. They telephone to each other. Everybody, you see people eating, they telephone. While they are eating, they don't even know what they are eating. They are telephoning. So today you have a civilization which is going into electronics. We are going to be an electronic, time. But that means that some people. Always the same people, my dear, with the same money in the same hands. And very well, we always say the 1% who owns America. The 1% who owns America, they will own the artificial intelligence. And the artificial intelligence will, through all the means of communication, will tell you what they want to tell you. And you are a slave. You are a slave, you are a new slave. You're a slave of them. And the kids, which have no formation otherwise than to know who wrote the first tragedies, they don't care about that. The kids will be mechanics in the hands of those people with their artificial intelligence. Everything is in one or two hands. I don't want to talk about things like, I don't want to talk about that. Amazon, for example. Amazon, you will have one Amazon for absolutely everything. You don't need to have any store of anything. You will have one store for everything. We will have one steam engine for everything. So we are going to a civilization of non-thinking people, or people who will have the money to tell you what to think. And like it was an old movie called Things to Come. And that the things to come, and in the same way, if you want, that the fantastic civilization of South America, the Indians, not only South America, and they went a little further, nobody can understand really the pyramids. We still don't know how they did it. So that has disappeared, and we absolutely can disappear and be replaced by something else.
And what can we do about it?
What can we do about it? It's very simple. No, it's very, very simple. No, it's very simple. What I say means that the capitalism has absolutely no philosophy at all. America has no philosophy. And I told you already that America is made of two parts, contradictory parts. One part where you are not supposed to have the right to kill and you must go on the sidewalk and, the society, the rules of society. And according to the rule of society and basic rule of society, the free enterprise, where you can kill anyone you want to take their place. So it's two contradictory things. We don't have the right to kill, and here you have the right to kill. You have no philosophy. America has no philosophy. The capitalist world has no philosophy. The only world that has a philosophy is the communist world. That philosophy is upside down, completely upside down. Marx did not know at all what he was talking about, and he said it himself that he was not a Marxist, because he could not eventually find some solutions. So there is no in the world a philosophy able to get the people together and say, all right, guy, it's over. The 1, 2, or 3, or 10, or 12 of them will govern the world because they have more money than you. You must have the same voice. Democracy is a question of voice. You must have the same voice as the guy who has 100 million times more money than you.
Must we have the same amount of money?
No, that's impossible, my dear, because that is fight. It's always the same thing. History does not repeat itself. History has never repeated itself. People say, oh, history repeats itself. Forget it. It's men who repeat history. That is a completely wrong thing to say history repeats itself. It means it's not our fault. It's the fault of history. But who is history? You are making history.
But everybody deserves the same amount of food.
Absolutely, my dear. So it's
the same amount of education.
Absolutely. So it's
the same amount of health care.
Absolutely. So it's why for the first time since a man put his hand on the wall of a cave, the cave people, which means he made the first manifestation of the arts. The arts, if you look at the history, at the whole history of humanity, the only thing that remains and keeps the people is art, the arts. And the arts has never been used as the way of government because it was not in the government. The painter Raphael never thought of being a big guy in the government, or Michelangelo. So they were artists number one. But those artists were producing art according to a philosophy, which is the dialectic of the arts, which means you have to put together two things which at first sight are contradictory. And we say they are not contradictory. Inspiration, which is completely abstract, and the brush or the paints, which are completely figurative. But you need those to put those two things together to produce a piece of art. But that piece of art cannot depend. If you make a painting to be on a wall and to be framed, you don't paint the wall. You don't finish the painting on the wall under. So it means you should not have people with too much money, not enough money. You should not stop people from having money because you have people who must, say, exerce their imagination or will or whatever it is. You must allow people to become themselves, but at the same time, you must put a stop, if you want, at people with too much and people with not enough.
And can people have slaves?
No, the thing is to replace slave by free education.
With robots.
Absolutely. No. Robots, it's the same thing. Robots and artificial intelligence cannot be in the same hands. Forget that because that is really the end of our civilization. All the people will be people computerizing, not thinking. Kids not thinking. Nobody's thinking. You will accept all what they say through the TV, through whatever it is, your telephone, whatever it is, laws, because they make laws. In the 1500s, Thomas More, who is very well known, Thomas More, the man for all seasons, make a movie. And Thomas More wrote a book in which he says, exactly, he says the people with money are busy only at making money, and when they have enough money, they transform that money into laws. They transform their money into laws. And it's exactly, if it was in the 1500s, it's exactly the same thing today. The people with a lot of money, don't worry, they manage in such a way that the laws are made that they can go on with more and more and more money. Don't worry about that.
But people need to have some kind of laws, right?
We need to have laws to if you want to say limit the most that you can have, Don't say that you should not have. That's not my method. But limit the too much and limit the not enough. And have enough education. Everybody has enough education, if not enough money, but enough education if you want to be able to understand and to be what the definition of the dictionary when you say society is interdependent individual. So we have the interdependent individual of society and we have the fighters against each other to demolish the competition. So that is not acceptable, you see. So what is acceptable should be to have the freedom to do everything you want up to a certain point.
So freedom is important.
Of course, freedom is important, otherwise you are not yourself. But it's where, if you want, it's where artificial intelligence and robot can reduce man to an unthinking individual. If you don't give the education and at the same time you produce absolutely everything with no help, human help, the robots will do it for you, then after that the man is only a slave and knows absolutely nothing. And if you don't give him the education to know who were the four first writers of tragedy, forget it, my dear.
Well, I don't think I need to know that. I could just Google it, right?
Huh?
I could just Google it, right? And
no, when I quote that is to
ask the internet.
no, but you know when I quote that is to say that you know I spoke, you know, general, if you want, general history of humanity with some graduated people who didn't know a damn thing about it, you know, damn thing where they are coming from. Is it possible? It is possible in America. Because we have no education and you have a very limited education. You go into one field and you know only about that field and nothing else.
People in Japan might not know about the tragedies. That doesn't mean that they're not being educated.
No. That's something else. You know, it's in your tradition. We are the Occident, and you are talking about the Orient. Orient and Occident are completely different. The Occident made the conquest of the world, you know, with their boats. But at the same time, if you want, centuries and centuries before the Occidental, the Chinese were able with the junk. The junk was able to go around the world. They never did. They absolutely never did. They had a rudder, central rudder, and they were able to go against the wind, which the Occidental boat at that time were not able to do, absolutely not able to do. We were 10 centuries later, but we were more industrious and more going out. And we were the conquerors, and we conquered the gold, the east, we conquered all that everywhere. We conquer absolutely everywhere. That was the Occident. So you cannot compare the Occident. And why, you know, when I say the four guys, the four dramatists, it's because it's in your history is few kilometers out of you, you know, of your history. You belong to that history, you know. America has been made of people who were raised in that history. But America forget absolutely anything from the past. They know absolutely nothing from the past.
And what about freedom of speech? Does that account?
Freedom of speech. Do we have a few papers completely joking about the government, making fun about the government? You don't have newspapers going against the government in this country.
Well, they're owned by the 1%. Aren't you developing a newspaper?
No, I cannot, my dear. I don't have the money to develop a newspaper.
You said you were going to develop one for the neighborhood.
Yeah, because the neighborhood is destroying by his action. The neighborhood is destroying the past. You know, the images of the past. It has been. You know, the past is the past. It was difficult, you know, 2 centuries ago, 3 centuries ago, 4 centuries ago. Life was difficult. And today, you know, you see guys like me, 97, you know, that was absolutely impossible. In the 1500s, if a woman of 30 years old was already an old woman, come on. And the men at 45, they were dead. So today, look at me. what do I do for that? Nothing at all. It's because slowly but surely, by a lot of, the medicine, whatever you want, the alimentation, whatever you want, men last longer than they were lasting in the Middle Ages, for example.
Well, having a good attitude, right?
Huh?
Having a good attitude.
Ah, yes, of course, come on.
Sense of humor will help you live long.
Yeah, yes, of course. So, but you see, you don't have that. You don't have a newspaper. You don't have things like you have, for example, the one that I know in France, the Canard enchaîné, who was absolutely saying the most against the government. Here, it's absolutely impossible. It's a word, the freedom of speech and opinion. Ah, come on, you know very well that it's a word. You will never have the freedom of speech and opinion. Come on.
Well, speaking of freedom of the press, you have a document that you've put together, right?
Yes, but why?
And what is this?
It's a series of drawings that are, I could add more than that, but all of them is a criticism of what
Nice
we are
printing
doing.
job.
It's a criticism of what we are doing, if you want. It's a joke about what we are doing.
So they're jokes.
So, yeah, because like that, people can read it, If you see a book of jokes, you eventually will read it. If it's always serious.
So this little book is called America the Great,
yeah,
published by No Pennies Productions.
yeah. But look at America the Great. Who is America the Great?
On the cover, it's a
It's a-
rabbit
It's a rabbit.
holding the American flag.
Yeah, it's a rabbit.
So, since it's freedom of the press, people can get a copy of this book, right?
Yeah, I don't know what will happen in the future if it becomes too well known.
And then didn't you tell me that you got a copy of this book to Hillary Clinton?
Yeah, but I should not tell you.
You can't. Don't tell me how, but
Like friends.
the Secret Security will be coming to check you out.
Oh no, absolutely! Come on, I'm waiting. I told you that in the past I've been shot by the Germans. I'm not sure that I'm not shot by the Americans, and well shot this time, because it's a security of the government. So if that is an insecurity for the government, they will not like it. And to who I send that?
Who?
To start with, to be sure that it goes to the government. I thought of it. I don't have enough. I don't have the money to publish hundreds of thousands of those things and put it absolutely everywhere. So where can you put it where eventually by the mouth and the word of mouth and eventually one copy of it, where is it possible to eventually touch the government? In two places.
In restrooms.
In two places, yeah. In churches,
Churches?
and restaurants.
Because nobody wants to actually... They need to occupy their minds in the church, right?
No, but there is always connection. There are connections.
So did you
between
give these out to the Greekstown Church here?
Okay.
You did?
Yeah. Yeah. And so I sent it to all the churches, not all the churches, there are too many churches, to something like 25 churches, the main churches in Washington, D.C. And I'm going to send it to the 25 best bar in Washington, D.C., where people talk, and where eventually the politicians who are in the government, they can go.
When this shows up at the church door, what do you expect them to do with it?
I don't know. I'm asking you. I don't know. I have no
Do
idea.
you think they're going to put them on the pews?
I believe if you.
Oh, for 1 cent.
I believe if you want that it has always been, but it is time to say something. If we just do not say something, when once more I see those kids with a computer instead of learning how to write, when, I was a graphologue, means that you were giving me your handwriting and I was able to tell basically who you are. But that's impossible with a computer, that's over. And beside that, when you write, I remember the first letters that I wrote, the very, very first letter when I wrote. When you write, you are obliged to develop your personality to write nice letters. With a computer, you don't need that. The computer does it for you.
Oh, you should see my
So-
handwriting now. I can barely even read it.
Absolutely. So we are going electronically to a world of stupidity, and the world of stupidity is the best word for the people with money, my dear.
But there is opportunity in the world of electricity, right?
Like us.
Technology, yeah.
Us.
Here we are. But folks can get a copy of this.
Of course, they can
document.
get a copy.
And how do they do that?
They can write at Michel Mockers one word dash Gmail, or they can go into no-pennies.com.
And when they you will send them a copy.
I will send them a copy of it.
And then they can pass it along to their church.
Absolutely, they can pass it to whoever they want.
I gotta say, folks, it's a very funny little book that Michel has put together.
Listen, George, I interrupt you. I believe that does not exist so far. I have never found a book or a newspaper, something like
Some of these drawings are a little risque, though.
Of course, come on.
So you have to be over 18 to receive the.
Oh, no, come on, over 18. Why, are you kidding? There is not so risque. What is risque? The buttocks of the Republic?
Oh, what was this I saw here?
Oh, everybody knows that, come on. You don't need to be an adult. You know to do that, come on. It's a very, very clear demonstration of what it means. Huh? You cannot write anything clearer than that drawing. So I believe it's the first time. I don't know anything else that is like that, and that people publish something. In fact, it's against the government.
And if folks want to see what we're talking about, they have to email you at
Michel Mockers -Gmail.
no Michel Mockers at
One word.
at Gmail
Gmail.
or no.com.
No pennies, no dash pennies. Because I took no dash pennies because I wrote.
Because you don't have any pennies.
No, I was very admired at that time. It was still of my time. The Three Pennies opera.
Oh.
So I wrote the No Pennies opera. I wrote a total opera, you know. So out of that opera, I took something else, which is Trompe the Knife. And I'm going to give you.
You didn't put that in
No, I
this
forgot to put it there. Trompe the Knife, but they will receive it. Trompe the Knife. And it's the story of Trompe the Knife, which is very, I should say, very
And
mean.
we haven't made any money off of this podcast yet, have we?
No, no.
But we're not asking people for money. We're giving out information, and
Yeah, we will see. You know, the Providence will do it. The little booklet exists. You know, you start to have people who want the little booklet. We will see how it develops, and it will find a development by itself. It will develop itself.
and we're not. We don't have T-shirts for sale or anything like that yet.
No, not yet.
Although a T-shirt with your face on it would be kind of nice.
No, there is one. There is one with the four horsemen of the apocalypse.
No,
Don't talk about that.
we're getting
No.
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 Nope.
Folks, you're going to have to turn in next week to what that was all about. We're coming to the end of the show. We're just about a minute left, and I want to encourage everybody to send us your thoughts
And to think.
and we'll get through this. Okay, right?
Yeah, and to look at all the concurrents for the presidency with a critical eye. Yeah, critical mind. We should look, not accept just like that everything what is said, you know, because it said it's 300 years. It said exactly the same thing.
Okay, folks, we're signing off for today. Michel, thank you very much once again.
Thank you very much, George, for giving the occasion to say that.
Okay, folks, bye. Listen again next week.